Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third episode of The Clinch. I'm
Fourth.
Justin Peck. We got Keith Robert as always. Today on the show we have David.
Hello,
last,
everybody.
last week we had Jay Martin on the show. Jay did a great job. Thanks for being on. I'm going to kick it over to David, and he's going to tell us how he got into MMA, and then we're going to hop right into the Fight Pass card. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, first off, I want to thank you for having me on this great show. It's I've been a fan since, as Keith said, this is episode 4, because I listened. There it is. I was always a huge fan growing up of wrestling, WWE and WCW, and then I would always see guys like Ken Shamrock, and they would say, the world's most dangerous man, and he would come out with UFC gloves, but they never said he was a UFC fighter. They always said he was just a cage fighter. And then, so I would always see him and Dan Severn, and I always wondered where these guys came from. And then I thought I have a theory of where I figured it out. WWE Monday Night Raw was on Spike TV from 2000 to 2005. Ultimate Fighter premiered on Spike in 2005. So I'm assuming I had to be watching WWE because they were doing promos for the Ultimate Fighter. I said, hey, this looks like interesting. I was at that age of 19 now, so I wanted something a little different. And then ever since that, I watched the first Ultimate Fighter, and I've basically just fell in love with it ever since. And going to some pay-per-views and all that stuff, it's like now wrestling and MMA are basically 50-50 in my opinion. So that's how I kind of fell in love with the Ultimate Fighter and MMA and the UFC. So that's basically my little story.
Very cool. Yeah, you're right. It does seem like they're tying in together more and more, especially with McGregor's little war on words.
Yeah, that offended every single person in the roster.
And I don't know if you guys noticed, when he got into the cage versus Diaz, he walked around the ring like Vince McMahon when he first got in, swinging his arms and everything. I thought
somebody made like a GIF of that, and it was like the best thing because they had the music going. It was like the perfect scenario.
Hey, yes. So Justin, me and Dave have a pretty cool story how we became friends. For anybody who doesn't know, we actually know each other instead of just on the internet. I went to a UFC. I usually watch with a bunch of friends, and I went to a Buffalo Wild Wings. A bunch of my friends went around, so I went to Buffalo Wild Wings all by myself. And there was this guy Doug and this guy Mike sitting next to me, and they were talking to each other, so I assumed they were friends. And then somehow we started talking, all three of us, and we find out that all three of us were at the fights watching MMA all by ourselves. So we were like, "Oh, how funny!" Then the very next UFC, I don't know, I don't remember what card it was. I don't know, maybe Dave remembers. I don't remember.
No, I can't remember.
What was it?
I can't remember what it was.
Oh, so I see the guy Mike again, and I'm sitting on the other side of the bar, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go say hi to him. And then a chair opened up next to him, so I started sitting next to this guy Mike, and Mike was sitting next to Dave, and they were talking, so I assumed they knew each other. Come to find out, Mike went to Buffalo Wild Wings to watch the fights again by himself, and then Dave went there by himself, and we're like, how funny is that? Then the next one, I go again for the third time with no friends want to watch the fights, so I go the third time all by myself. I see Mike, I see Doug, and I see Dave, and I go, hey, we're all by ourselves. Why don't we get a table? And we've been pretty much doing tons of UFCs that way now. We're all friends. We exchange phone numbers, and we watch the fights together. Me and Dave went to the Boston card, the Cruz Dillashaw card in Boston. So, we've been friends ever since. He's really knowledgeable. He loves Charlie Brenneman.
Oh, the Sprainerd? You gotta love Charlie B.
So Charlie B and Ed Herman. So
yeah.
That's his two
Well,
favorite.
we got
friends.
on TV. Tell them when we got on TV. We were in the promo.
Yeah, that's true. We were on TV. We were sitting next to Tisha Torres and Aljamain Sterling. We had better seats than John Howard and Jorge Rivera. Derek Lewis. We had better seats than Derek Lewis.
Nice. That was pretty cool. That you guys just happened to be going to the same spot for all the fights. That's pretty cool.
MMA bringing people together.
All right, we're going to hop into the speed bag segment. Hopefully this week it'll go more like a speed bag and, less like, I don't know, something slow, a heavy bag. All right, we're going to hop right into Jeremy Kennedy with his decision win over Alessandro Ricci. Keith, one thought on that?
Well, Richie took the fight on short notice, so that kind of showed right away. The first round was pretty competitive, and then the second and third round, Kennedy took over. I kind of wish the fight was, I wish Richie had a full fight camp, but neither one of these guys are that big of a prospect. So Kennedy said himself that he's too small for the division. He's going to move down. That's about it.
Okay. Dave?
Yeah, both guys making their UFC debut in their home country. I have to agree with Keith. I also thought Kennedy had a nice leg sweep takedown towards the end of the second round. Other than that, it was just a lot of clinching, a lot of just trying to grab for position. I mean, I do agree with the decision, but we'll see where these two guys go from here. But Kennedy got his first UFC win, so happy for the guy.
All right, next fight on the card was first round knockout, Laprise over Gowdy. Keith?
It was a nice KO. Laprise got really good boxing. He's a pretty decent prospect. He won one of the Ultimate Fighter seasons. He had a really close fight with Ross Pearson recently. He said he's moving up. He missed weight for this fight, so he's going to be moving up to welterweight. So we'll see how he does. There's a lot of interesting matches at welterweight. So,
Dave?
trying to keep it speed bag.
Yeah, I mean, he was going back and he caught him, so he must have a whole lot of power, Laprise. And once he knew he hurt him, he just, just swarmed on him, never let him get back to, to a standing position, and just kept raining down blows. And first round TKO. So good for him, and we'll see where he goes from here. Like he was saying, he's gonna, adjust weight, and we'll see which UFC fighter they give him next.
All right, then we move over into the Fox prelims. There was only 2 on Fight Pass last week. We go into the Fox prelims. Felipe Silva, first round knockout over Shane Campbell. Keith?
Well, Felipe kind of making a name for himself. He's 8-0 now in the UFC. 8-0 total. He's got 7 stoppages. He won his UFC debut by knockout. The rap sheet on Silva was that he has massive power, but he's kind of a wild winger. And Campbell is the complete opposite, one of these point technical Muay Thai guys. And Silva just absolutely blitzed him. Beautiful knockout, good shots to the body. At 8-0, 7 stoppages, another name to a stacked lightweight division.
Dave?
Yeah, I agree with Keith. He had a nice left to the body, and then threw a nice right, and then followed up with a left right to the chin, and his feet gave out, and then he just kind of swarmed on him, and then like Keith was saying, it's undefeated. I feel like he could do something with the division, and now Shane Campbell, he's going backwards, but we'll have to look out for Felipe Silva in the future, see where he goes from here.
All right, the next fight on it. This one I'm going to go to you first, Dave. I'll let Keith do the first 3. I'm going to let you do the second 3 first.
Okay.
We had a decision win by Alessio De Chirico over Miss McClellan.
Okay, the first round was very competitive. I scored it for McClellan in the first round. I feel like he landed the nicer shots. But then the second round happened. McClellan got a takedown. And, DeCirio, he reversed it and laid a nice left elbow to the top. And I thought he was going to finish because the referee was standing basically right over him, like another 2 more seconds with just shots. I felt like he was going to get finished. But then after that, McClellan showed a lot of heart. He kept getting takedowns late, but it wasn't enough to steal the decision. But it was a split, and I thought it was an interesting fight. I enjoyed watching that one for sure.
I scored it for DeCirio too. He was a guy who had a lot of hype going into this fight, and I actually think that the hype would die because Gary McClellan is an awful fighter. He's not a UFC talent fighter. The only reason I believe he's in the UFC is because he's from South Africa. If he was another fighter from America, I don't think he would have reached this level. I think they just, they like filling guys from other countries on Fight Pass cards and stuff like that. DeCirio, he's pretty well rounded. He has some pretty good strikes. When he reversed McClellan, he has some good ground strikes. He's an Italian fighter. All the Italians probably excited about him. One thing I noticed is he really faded. he was really sucking wind. Luckily, McClellan's even worse for sucking more wind, so Teixeira could win. But I'm sure Jay Martin was all excited about the Italian fighter, and yeah, he's probably somewhere playing bocce right now, talking about the Cheerio. But I'd slow the rolls. I actually think his stock, even though he won, I think his stock dropped.
All right, then the next fight on the card, Keith, you're going to make fun of me for the names. You know how I am with those. Kyle Bochniak with the decision win over Enrique Barzola. Dave?
I actually thought that Barzola did win this fight. I felt like, he was the Ultimate Fighter Latin America Season 2 winner. I felt like he did a little more. The third round, you can kind of go either way with it. Barzola was able to get the takedowns at the end of round 2. He had a nice slam. I mean, I know a slam could win a fight, basically, because we saw, Kimbo versus Houston Alexander, and that's one slam won the fight. But I want to see Keith's opinion on this, but I thought that Enrique definitely maybe won the first 2 rounds, but I mean, I think it was a bad decision, but we'll see what Keith has to chime in with.
Dave loves bringing up Kimbo. He's a huge fan of Kimbo. He used to run in Kimbo's posse down in Miami for the street. You used to set up the fights for him, right?
Oh, of course I did. Who do you think gave him the name Kimbo?
So, well, me and Dave were at the Boston fights, and Bosniak's a local fighter. He took the fight on 2 days' notice against Charles Rosa, and it was a really close fight. Rosa won. So I was rooting for Bosniak, but I scored at 30-27 Barzola. I thought he won all 3 rounds. I think one of the rounds, I can't remember which round it was. I thought it was fairly close. But I thought Barzola won. I was really surprised by the decision. I know we're going to talk about later on the Lausanne-Miller decision, and I'm sure there's going to be some controversy there. But I think this was the worst call on the card. I don't see how Bosniak won. He was very tentative. I thought Barzola was the aggressor. I thought he landed the bigger shots. I went to MMA Decisions, which is a great tool for websites. It takes people from all over the country. Anybody who submits a score, maybe hopefully one day we can get on there. Anybody does play-by-play how they score it, and all 14 writers scored it for Barzola. So I kind of felt bad for the guy. I thought he clearly won. It's too bad.
Looking at some quick stats, wanted to see he had higher percentage of strikes, more strikes. The only thing it looks like he really lost on, he was only 1 for 9 on takedowns compared to 1 for 3, but you can't win a fight just by winning takedowns.
Hold on. Bosniak had 1 takedown and Barzola had 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what I said last week. Stopping takedowns is not offense. It'd be like NFL giving points for sacking a quarterback or stopping a guy in the field. It's defensive. So really, to me, that means nothing. To me, it's 1 takedown to 1.
All right, next fight on the card, Smiley Sam Alvey versus Kevin Casey. Winner by 2nd round knockout was Smiley. How do you feel, Dave?
Well, it seems like every single card Sam Alvey's fighting on it. This guy fights every month. He seems like he's just dying to get on every single card. I actually really enjoy watching Sam Alvey fight. The last fight he beat up a Rhode Island guy, Eric Spicely, and before that he lost a terrible fight it was against Thibodeau. But yeah, that was a good fight against Casey. He actually rocked him, knocked him down, and was doing ground shots, but then he wanted to stand up and still trade with him, which was, smart on his part, because then he eventually got the TKO win. But he's been looking pretty good lately, Sam Alvey. We'll see where he goes. 2-fight winning streak, both by TKOs and knockouts, and when you see him, it's always an exciting fight, and he always looks like he's having a great time in there, always smiling. So I enjoy definitely watching him fight.
Kevin Casey's an awful fighter. He's an awful fighter, and he's an awful human being. This is a guy that was at a jiu-jitsu tournament and got in a fight and went to his car and pulled out a gun at the jiu-jitsu tournament. I mean, this guy shouldn't be in the UFC. He's not a UFC caliber fighter, and we shouldn't have people like this fight in the UFC. I'm glad Sam Alvey beat him. Alvey, I mean, he's a decent fighter. He is what he is, but he's great on the mic. I mean, he's a guy that I love watching him fight because wonder what he's going to say afterwards. His post-fight interviews are some of my favorite things. If Demetrius Johnson or Rafael Dos Anjos or one of these guys had Sam Alvey's charisma, I think Demetrius Johnson, he hopes he gets 100,000 buys when he headlines a fight. If he had Sam Alvey's charisma, he'd probably at least get up to like 300,000.
I actually agree with that. I think he would be more of a star that the UFC needs if he had a little bit more personality to him. And if you put a guy like Alvey with Johnson's talent, that's a superstar, guaranteed.
What'd you say?
If you put the talent of a guy like Demetrius into the personality of Sam Alvey, I guarantee UFC has a superstar on their hands. That's a great point.
And Sam Alvey's wife won America's Top Model.
Good for him. That's why he's smiling all the time.
Yeah. She was there. She was in the background. I don't know. The next Top Model pictures are a lot different than real life, but good for him. Good for Sam.
Good for Sam Alvey.
I mean, hey, Sam Alvey is fighting at middleweight. He says he's willing to fight at light heavyweight. How have they not matched up Ginger Sam Alvey versus Ginger Ed Herman?
Oh, that's the main event on UFC Idaho.
Dave would be like, it'd be like picking between his kids.
Oh, of course. I couldn't watch it. I would be too heartbroken for either of them. It's a sad day in MMA if that does happen. And also, you just ruined my pick for UFC 205. Thanks a lot.
All right, we hop on over to the main card. First two fights on the main card, Keith. I'll let you go first on the first two. Second two, I'm going to let you go first, Dave. First fight on the card was Jim Miller grinding out a decision over Lauzon. And only 16 seconds of control time for Jim Miller. What do you think, Keith?
Joe Lauzon's local. I want to put a little disclaimer out there. I've met him multiple times. Really nice guy. His brother is completely opposite. Not that he's a jerk, but his brother's a Eminem type, one of these white gangster types. And Joe is like computer nerd. Like you would never know he's a fighter. Like how they came from the same parents is crazy. Anyway, so I'm a little biased to Joe Lauzon. I always root for him. I thought he won this fight. I believe I scored it 29-28. I gave Jim Miller, even though Lauzon got the takedown first, I gave Jim Miller the first round, and then I gave Lauzon the second. I thought the second round was clearly Lauzon, and the third round was close, but I thought Lauzon won. Is it a complete robbery? No. I mean, it was pretty competitive. It was a lot closer than people were pretending. What was fascinating about this fight was, I mean, both these guys are, they're later past the grade. I mean, they're both young in sense of fighters. They're still I think they're in their early 30s. So they still have years left. But when you take in the toll, how long they've been fighting in the UFC, I mean, Joe Lauzon made his debut against Jens Pulver. I think he was like 20 or 21. He's been fighting in the UFC forever. Jim Miller, same thing. Both of these guys, I'm assuming they're probably, if not top 10, top 20 most UFC appearances. Joe Lauzon, I would have thought Joe Lauzon would have had the advantage in the stand-up, and I thought Jim Miller would have had the advantage with the wrestling. And it was actually the complete opposite. Jim Miller was really tagging Joe Lauzon on the feet, and Joe Lauzon got the takedowns and had a lot more control, had some good elbows on top. Like I said, I thought Lauzon won. I think he clearly won, but I don't think it was as bad as a scoring as the Barzola fight, the Barzola-Bosniak fight. The thing that really bothers me about Joe Lauzon is Joe Lauzon has always struggled with cardio. He's always been one of these guys who comes out gun blazing in the first and then kind of fades as the fight goes on. And he didn't in this fight. He actually showed toughness, fought through. So for him to go to I think this is only his second decision in his UFC career, to go to a decision in a fight that I thought he wins and lose is I felt really bad for him. I went to MMA decisions. They had 25 of the 27 people scored it for Lauzon. So I think that right there should tell you something. I mean, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm just going. I don't know how many losses Joe Lauzon has in the UFC. He probably has, 16 wins, 9 losses. All right, so now he has 10 losses. Big. All right. I mean, he wasn't a title contender. Neither was Jim Miller.
Dave?
Well, this is a rematch from UFC 155, and both guys were coming off huge wins on UFC 200. Basically, Jim Miller beating Takanori Gomi, and then Joe Lauzon basically just manhandling Diego Sanchez. I know a lot of fans were thinking, oh my God, their first fight was completely bloody, was probably one of the most bloodiest fights I've seen in the UFC. So they're all like, great, we're going to have another bloodbath. Both these guys are going to be bleeding. So right there, that disappointed them. I agree with Keith was saying that I thought Joe Lozon just did enough to win. I mean, I know his striking was not up to par, but his ground game, it's always decent, but we'll see. Oh, man, it's just kind of tough because I didn't think Miller did enough to actually get the victory. But now it's like, what do you do with these two guys? Like they've been around, they're grizzled vets. I mean, I just don't know where these two guys go from here. Keith, where do you think you match up Miller next, or what?
Well,
what do you think
the worst part is Joe Lozon. If he wins this fight, I mean, just run it back. I don't think it was a disappointing fight. I thought it was actually pretty entertaining. I thought Miller made mistakes. Like I don't know what period. I think it was round 2, maybe, or round 3. I forgot which round it was. I thought he was winning the fight, and then he throws a kick and slips on it. So I mean, Lozon really didn't get a takedown. He just landed on top.
Yeah.
And why are you throwing a leg kick when you're clearly winning with the hands? And I felt like he gave that round away. Now you can't run it back. Miller's up 2-0. But if you had a win, Lozon won. I thought both fights were exciting. You could do a trilogy. It's not a Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell level trilogy that people want. But I mean, opening fight on or main event fight pass for the UFC 205. You got a guy from New Jersey, a guy from Mass. Neither one is too far from New York. I wouldn't be surprised, being that both these guys have been in the sport a long time. UFC tries. It seems like the big cards. They try to put a lot of the veterans on. That's why UFC 200. You had Joe Lozon, you had Diego Sanchez, Takanori Gomi, Jim Miller. Being that they're both close, I could see both of them fighting somebody at UFC 205 in New York. Who I wasn't really expecting to come up with somebody. Jim Miller versus Ally Quinta, maybe. I think that's an easy win for Quinta, but you have two local, Long Island guy, New Jersey guy, Joe Lozon. I don't know.
I think Ian Quinta's already on the card for 205. I think.
Well, they haven't announced anything yet for 205. So is he scheduled to fight? I'm not sure if he's scheduled to fight. He might be.
I think that's like the only fight scheduled right now.
Then cancel it. Cancel that and put Jim Miller in.
Because Keith said so.
I'm trying to get Joe Silva's job.
There you go. Next fight on the card, the lovely Paige Van Zandt knocks out Beck Rawlings in the second round. Keith, break it down for us.
Yeah, Paige Van Zandt's hot. But you know what? There's some pictures on the internet where Beck Rawlings ain't that bad either.
I agree.
I mean, Paige Van Zandt, she's a star, and her stock was already high. I guess I didn't watch the season, but I guess on Dancing with the Stars, she had the highest scores in history. Somehow didn't win because she went against a deaf guy who was dancing. So obviously he was getting a lot of sympathy votes. I didn't watch. But so her stock was already high. I mean, she's just being good looking. That helps you. And she's young. She's like 22. She has that like sweet girl next door thing. She's she's super hot, but she doesn't know that she's super hot. That thing going.
The fight, Keith. The fight. How was the fight?
You want to talk about the fight? Oh. All right. I thought we were just gonna talk about how hot it's the kick is awesome. So her stock, I mean, she's already stocked. She's doing the T-Mobile and all these different commercials. So the kick, now she has this crazy, beautiful kick. One of these, you're gonna see 10 years after retire when they're doing UFC highlights. They're gonna show this flying switch kick. That said, I thought she lost the first round. I thought Beck Rawlings was catching her when she was coming in. She was fighting completely different than I normally seen her. She's never been this outside, moving away, kicking kind of a girl. She's usually a pressure fighter. She's usually, they say, let's go. She's getting in your face and she's keeping pressure on. Kind of like Diego Sanchez in his prime. Kind of like times with Clay Guida when he was in his prime. Kind of overpressing you. And I didn't like this outside fighting. I mean, I think obviously the kick, I mean, what can you do? But her best fighting is when she's pressuring the person, overwhelming with volume, and getting the takedowns. Now she's, I wouldn't say a smaller girl for the weight class, but Beck Rollins, I mean, you just look at it. She looks so much bigger than Paige Van Zandt. She's got bigger legs, bigger arms. So that might have been a reason why they might want to try to slow her down. I mean, a win's a win. She's 22 years old. She's beaten Felice Herrig. She's beat Beck Rawlings. She showed how tough she is against Rose Namajunas. So I mean, I'm rooting for Paige Van Zandt. She mentioned our man Justin on Twitter, so we all should be rooting for her. But I see some holes in the game. But at 22 years old, she really shouldn't have been fighting at this level yet. She should have been fighting in Invicta, fighting lower class girls. So to be already at 22 years old and fighting in the UFC, and I think she just turned 22 because when they did the season on The Ultimate Fighter, she was under 21, so she couldn't be on the show. So I think she might have just turned 22.
Dave, your thoughts on the fight?
Well, I was very curious to see how she would come off because she would, like he was saying, she did Dancing with the Stars, and she wasn't even doing a training camp until this fight was announced. She was just living her life, and then once they announced the fight, then she started training for it. But so I want to see if there was ring rust. Where she came out very strong. She tried to land that front kick right off the bat. But other than that, I feel like she was just very timid. She was just, or either timid or just trying to be very calculated, just picking which shot she wanted. But during that first round, she kept trying to go for the head kick. So you knew it was coming eventually. But then I think she called it, once she did land it in the second round, I think she called it like the kick the can style kick. And, Beck Rollins is, pretty tough fighter in there. But she made her, I know the first round it was, very competitive. But once she landed that kick, this girl, they're trying to make her a superstar basically because there's no other big females out there. Once Rousey left, they're trying to fill that gap really quick, so that's why she was on Dancing with the Stars. You get the appeal of normal people that are watching that show, and they say, hey, I want to see what she does outside dancing. And then you see her, and you're like, wow, she's beautiful. She can be a model, for Christ's sake. She practically already is. And now you're looking at her beat up women, and you're like, wow, I'm basically falling in love with this girl right in front of my eyes. So, I mean, it was a great win. After she lost to Namajunas, which was a hell of a fight too. I'm excited to see where they put her, and she can have a quick turnaround because that she didn't get too much damage in that fight, so they may try to steamroll this girl and put her on the next. Maybe they'll put her on 205, maybe they'll put her on something else just to kind of get her as the new female figure because I think Dana White said Rousey's not fighting till 2017, so. Put the money on this girl and see where she takes you, basically.
She reminds me of the strawweight version of Gina Carano. She's got talent, but the looks is what makes her even more of a star. And I actually think at her age, I think they threw her to the wolves too fast. But throwing her to Rose Namajunas that early, I forgot who she wasn't supposed to fight with Rose. I forgot who she was scheduled to fight before that. And the person got hurt. I don't remember who it was. But now she's already fighting. She's already ranked in the top 10, not in Sports Talk, but on the UFC rankings. I really think they could have started off lower, kind of doing the Sage Northcutt type. We're fighting lower level talent, but to the casual fan, they don't know lower level talent from higher level talent, and got her stock. But now they're calling for fights with, say, like Tisha Torres.
Well, they already fought once before, Paige and Tisha, and then Tisha won that.
Yeah, and I think Tisha would destroy her again. I'm trying to think some other ones. I mean, and Michelle Waterson is a fight that I think would make a lot of sense. They're both really good looking. Michelle is actually smaller than Paige. Waterson's pretty good jiu-jitsu, but her stand-up's not that good. I think Paige could win that fight. If Waterson won, now you got another good-looking girl that you could turn into a star. She got the Karate Hottie nickname, one of those catchy nicknames. What's Paige Van Zandt's nickname of fight? It's like it's awful. It's like a horrible nickname.
12 gauge.
Yeah. 12 gauge. That's awful. She's gonna work. She's got to somehow pull in like the girl next door or something kind of nickname. Some kind of like I'm cute nickname.
To Dave's point about her being on Dancing with the Stars and bringing in a casual fighter, My mother watched that fight. Never, never watched UFC in her life. So, oh, Paige is fighting. I gotta watch that. So.
Oh, cool. That's cool. That's actually that's what they're hoping for. Now Justin's mom's gonna watch every page. Right. She probably thinks every UFC is when a flying switch kick knockouts.
Yeah, right.
karate Kid style knockouts.
Oh, that must always happen. Next fight on the card, Anthony Pettis finally gets back in the win column with a third-round submission, actually, over Charles Oliveira. Dave, go ahead.